What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here. Welcome back for me to return to the Mastodon discography. I know it has been a really long while since I had last reviewed their third album, Blood Mountain. But this is one album that I will not care at all to dive in a massive, long ramble, as well as to review this album. This is going to be a dedicating review to one of my favourite reviewers on YouTube, The Metal Meltdown, who I have talked about albums with him previously on albums we do defend that are overhated, and not only he's one of my favourite YouTubers, but this album is one of his top favourite albums of all time as well. If you haven't checked out The Metal Meltdown at all yet, go and subscribe. Today I'm going to be reviewing Mastodon's fourth studio album, entitled Crack the Skye. Crack the Skye was released on the 24th of March 2009. Brendan O'Brien did the production for this album. Crack the Skye's element this time around is the ether element, whereas with the previous three albums they have their own separate elements. Crack the Skye, in my opinion, is one of the greatest albums ever made. For the occasion, I'm wearing this artwork on the shirt, and this is, in my honest opinion, not only Mastodon's magnum opus, but in general, this is a quintessential record for any progressive metal fan to dive into this style of music. Yes, we all know around different bands, like with Dream Theater to Tool and some Opeth, but when I listen to Mastodon, these guys have been always my personal favourites. Crack the Skye is not only my favourite Mastodon album, it's one of my top 10 albums of all time. It's one of these records that definitely does not need to have any introduction. This is one of the best things to have ever come out, not only through a modern metal band, but of music. Crack the Skye was the album that got me so hooked into discovering the band and to discover this outstanding, unique, and a timeless approach to music in the fusion, the stylistic differences, and the overall vision of what progressiveness with metal music has been about. This album is another concept that perfectly describes a very emotional and personal side. And the inspiration heavily around the record is all around Brandailer's late sister, Skye, who committed suicide when she was really young. But it's not just because of the title track, into the different themes of astral travelling, astral journeys, to the wormhole, and a lot of the lyrics go into a protagonist along with an individual, a Russian mystic person called Grigory Rasputin. Both the protagonist and Rasputin will be mentioned heavily into the lyrics, but Crack the Skye is still a very brave dedication to Skye. There's no other word that I would really call Crack the Skye as masterpiece. One of the greatest albums for masterclass effort through production, songwriting, the emotional lyrics, and the performances. I always loved Blood Mountain a lot, and the classic Leviathan, and the very strong debut, the heaviest Mastodon album of Remission, but every single time about Crack the Skye could not just be a Mastodon record. It's a metal album with very, very powerful and outstanding achievements in music. I was very happy and lucky enough to get Crack the Skye signed by one of the guitar players, Bill Kelleher. This is the special edition of the album. It also comes with the DVD of the making of the album, which, if you have not watched it, definitely not miss out on it. It does make a perfect documentation about what the band were doing, what they went through, and it's also another personal record from any bands that I've listened to, and I think Crack the Skye was the beginning where they would later on take that influence of making personal struggles be used into music. They will be delivering more of that thing for the rest of their discography, which I really like a lot. I do love when artists and musicians go into something that was tragic or different of expressions and portray them into musical art. The opening song, Oblivion. Besides talking about the songs, I'm going to dive in with a lot of the notes I've been taking to talk about what a lot of the lyrics were going into in terms of making the concept making a lot of sense. Oblivion is one of my most favourite Mastodon songs of all time, through the doomy style riffing at the start to the really big, intensely huge build up, and then when the whole band goes straight through, it's just some of the tightest and most insane riffs through the catchiness and the melody. This is the first time that we also hear Brann Dailor doing lead vocals, besides his powerhouse technicality and mastermind skills behind the drums. And he will be continuing to do more of the vocal performances with the rest of Mastodon through the later albums. Oblivion is an amazing song because it does start the album as perfectly through the incredible riffs and the virtuosity the band does deliver from the start right to the very end of the song and the whole album, obviously. Brent's guitar solo work is also spectacular, one of my most favourite solos that he's ever done. The lyric writing around this track, the opening line of "I flew beyond the sun before it was time" means a person has passed away and transcended in a young age. It also makes a big reference to the Greek myth of Icarus, who flew too close to the sun. Wings were burnt and fell down from the skies, hoping to be pulled back inside his body while being in space. He can see the world in its whole entirety as well. The pre-chorus does make the first time reference about Skye, Brann's sister, not just from the title track, but through the pre-chorus, Brann felt guilty when she did take her own life and thinking to himself that he had failed to protect her. The chorus, which is just as incredible through the style and the vocals, mentions a fall from grace, which means an angel gets banished and becomes a fallen angel. The other lyrics do feel the pain about letting Skye go and leading to Brann thinking to himself as an astronaut in space that lost his ship in oblivion. The second verse is more deeper around the emotional imagery, going through Brann's drug addiction, being high, and then digging her own grave, and still couldn't believe she passed away. And then stops digging, looking upwards, and has a vision of Skye looking down at him from the stars. The later lyric makes a reference to her when she was a child, hence the lyric, "The eyes of a child could see no wrong." Divinations. The lyrics continue around the concept after Oblivion. The instrumentation is very technical, from the way Brann plays and the other wizardry of the playing from both Brent and Troy and Bill. The vocals to the chorus from Troy was just so fantastic, so strong on here. The lyrics dive into around the animal spirit realm and trying to help the protagonist, sent later on by spirits to a Russian cult who would use him in a divination. Grigory Rasputin was accused by his detractors of being a Khylyst. The protagonist is used in divination by them to whom Rasputin was accused of belonging. Quintessence. One of the most beautiful things about the album's music, you hear more of the keyboards in the gentle elements. It makes it not only as progressive, but it adds more into the picture and the overall direction of where this song is going to go into. The music is also incredible, and the instrumentation is top tier. It's another one of my most favourite tracks on Mastodon's whole repertoire. Quintessence begins around the astral journey, around the moment after the last track. Rasputin guides the protagonist back from the astral realm. The Punching Holes lyric makes reference when Brent was actually recovering from his coma he had for months after his severe brain injury. The chorus goes when the protagonist wants rationality but finds a person who doesn't want to support him. The quintessence refers to the theme of the ether element, the air breathed by gods, which binds ethereal bodies together. The Tsar. The Tsar, over 10 minutes, nearly 11 minutes actually, is split into 4 different parts. But like Oblivion, I absolutely adore this song. It is haunting, it is mysterious, but it's gorgeous. Through the darkness, it starts from those high notes, the fade-in on the guitars, and the gentle appearances from the band. And I think this song 100% is one of the best for the theatrical and very focused tones for vocals. I love Mastodon for the music, but for vocally, with Brent and Troy and, the whole band together, this is probably the most cinematic and highly detailed piece out of this whole album. Instrumentally connected into different parts, all matched, all combined in one of the best ever compositions Mastodon had created. The main attachment on Rasputin's altercation with the Tsar. The first set of lyrics, Tsar Nicholas found out that he is trying to take the throne. Rasputin will be committing a very bad law, an act of violation to try and steal the throne. Rasputin and the protagonist's souls to make an escape and return the protagonist's body in time. The next set of lyrics go into around the moment when World War I was on the rise and Nicholas II had been moved to the Eastern Front, creating the bloodshed and the chaos as a distraction. Rasputin and the protagonist's souls did make their escape. Rasputin was shot in the head, and the direction the souls were moving up towards the sky. They both fly up through the crack in the sky. They did escape the physical world. Their forms and shapes make their way through the astral plane. The protagonist's soul returns to his body after Rasputin was killed. You really think and pay attention intensely to when Mastodon creates music in this way. Heavy and very presentable, and as I said, theatrical. It defines the band and one of their best songs. The second half opens with the track Ghosts of Karelia. This is one of the most brutal songs on the album, because if I hear the bludgeoning, doomy, sludgy greatness of this track, you know that the strength of the whole sound will be increasing in some more violent directions. Rasputin and the protagonist travel together through space and makes an attempt to help the protagonist back to his body left on Earth. The inspiration through more of the lyrics was around the book of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, hence the first verse from all of the Tibetan mythology around the graphic violence and the gore, the darkness through these simple details of wordplay. Sinister Twin, which is a Venus reference, and the Bonded Iron lyric, which is a reference to Mars. It does remind me, strangely, on some of the heaviest sounds from the Remission record, although that album is as very heavy with its chaos, but I think this song does take me into a similar vein from that album, but this is another outstanding song by itself. The title track, Crack the Skye. This is more or less the dedication to Skye. Scott Kelly being with Mastodon once more to do lead vocals as a guest. And Scott Kelly from Neurosis, by the way, has done some of my most favourite vocal tones. Neurosis is another one of my favourite bands, but Scott Kelly's performance felt so passionate. The Blessed Visionary refers to Rasputin, and the Rovers Ran in Blood lyric is the murder reference when Gregory Rasputin was killed. It also makes a lyric to him being dumped in a river. The void line was described as an empty space between galaxies, feeling the loneliness and making the song as a big homage to her. Searching for a sign lyric means to get Bran out from that. Bran could be thinking to himself as a sheep, hence the lyric of the sheep will scatter, considering his bond with her, and addresses it as the shepherd. The lyric of Mountains of Despair was taken into the feeling of the whole sorrow and the melancholy, taking a massive toll from Bran and the whole family, weren't forgetting her face at all. The last chorus does feel dark, to tell Lucifer that Bran won't be taking her because her spirit is stronger than Lucifer's. Remarkable song, and it's brave. It's a brave song to fight through a real life tragedy and cast it, but it did feel extremely vulnerable. Then the last song, The Last Baron, the last song on the album. Out of all of the songs from Mastodon, on every single song that I've listened to from this band, this is, to me, my favourite Mastodon song of all time. 13 minutes of the band at their absolute peak. Not only through the rest of the album, but to me, Crack the Skye would not be a classic if it wasn't for The Last Baron. I loved the rest of the whole album earlier, but The Last Baron, every single time I have listened to this track, it felt as so majestic and as complete. I know there are other strong songs, but this is one song that I do see and consider to be one of the greatest metal songs in the whole world. Opening lines of lyrics from the protagonist staying away from his physical body and might be a better option than navigating towards it. And the lyric of Set the World Ablaze is the feeling of the helplessness and allowing the world to be completely burnt and destroyed. There are two interpretations around this song. The first interpretation being the protagonist is having difficulty navigating through the spirit realm implores Rasputin to give him guidance for him to see things and return his body on Earth, or the other one being the protagonist's lifeless body on Earth has been buried beneath in the ground. The other lyrics continue forward into finding the trouble to escape the spirit realm, and he needs Rasputin's wisdom to overcome it, wishing he arrives his physical body on Earth. The last Baron then comes in, guides him through the realm so that he'll return back to the physical world. The later lyric of the cyanide he craves part means Rasputin was poisoned in a previous assassination attempt and escaped. The thought of death encourages Rasputin to aid the protagonist back to his physical body, and after he does it, he'll be able to pass away and free his soul. The lyric "Will he save me?" means the protagonist questions whether he'll be helped to be returned to his body. Then he has returned to his body after being paralyzed, but he can no longer do any astral projection. After that, the last lyrics, before returning back to the first set of lyrics from the start of the song, he is sleeping in quotations and his mind is not in his body. There is a very big yet unknown description for many people to know what the conclusion of Crack the Sky's The Last Baron really is about. But with that being said, every single time that I hear the opening acoustic guitars to the wonderful soaring and perfection of vocals, direction through the later riffs, and by the way, around the over 8-minute mark, that is my favourite Mastodon riff ever. It's so good, it's pummeling, strike everything that they really wanted to accomplish here. The Last Baron, through this widening spread of influences and the multiple pieces of music, and make it a complete masterclass of writing, and to top it all, the last few minutes of my favourite guitar solo from Brent ever, wailing and howling through his skills to the univibe effect. It still leaves me speechless. It just makes me, in complete awe. The Last Baron is one of my favourite songs of all time. The influences around this album have been perfectly clear, as a few albums like Pink Floyd's Animals was an inspiration to make the album, and as well as with King Crimson's In the Court of the Crimson King. But I did not expect to not only think of this as a dedication to Brown's sister Skye, but to fully be invested through the lyrics about the wormhole to astral travelling. It's like, what is going on? And it's like a wow emotion. I could go so much more into Crack the Skye, but I know that what I've said in this review is pretty much madly long enough for me to talk about it with you guys. Overall, Crack the Skye by Mastodon is one of the greatest things ever. It's one of those albums that everyone knows. If you're a metal fan, obviously if you are a progressive metal fan too, but if you want to get into Mastodon, do discover Crack the Skye for the very first time, or you can check out Leviathan. But there's no denying for the fact that, yes, they've made other amazing albums, but Crack the Skye is everything that makes Mastodon be the band themselves. I'm going to give Crack the Skye by Mastodon the most obvious rating. It's a 10 out of 10. Perfection. It's the ultimate progressive metal album, in my opinion. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos. in the near future.